So then we mark it, and then we got to figure out how much we should charge. Makes perfect sense. So how we view it, how they view it, that relationship is always tricky, and fun is my polite way of saying that it's not fun and very tricky. But look at some of the considerations that you talk about for, in this case, food items. And as I said, hotel rooms, event pricing. It could be anything. Just the way this book is structured is what we're talking about in this form. So how they pay, what our competitors charge, ordering, things that definitely factor into this equation when we're talking about what we should charge. External factors, like we talked about, the competition and what they charge. So, here's an interesting thing to look at: pricing. And it's a snapshot. And it's a snapshot that takes a look and says, all right, well, here's what we know other people are charging. We're available. And then what we're charging. On face value, how do we compare to everyone else? Right? And you can see some highlighted items there that, that you're looking at from a competition standpoint. Economic, trends, seasonality, pricing related to all kinds of things that go into it, right? And then, of course, what is our goal from a profit margin standpoint? Again, bottom line thinking. So we look at, revenue, expenses, and profit, and what our profit margin is going to be. Because, for us, the big three, revenue, food and beverage costs, revenue, labor, food and beverage costs. We always want to factor those in and see what percentage is left. Maybe 10% profit's good for what you're trying to do. Maybe it's not even close. So that's something you're going to have to determine. Right? I just mentioned food and labor, and sometimes people mix food and beverage in together. Food lost to theft. Normally we're talking about pilferage, also known as employee theft. Right? Spoilage, preparation. When we talk about food lost in preparation, we're talking about, incorrect portion cuts of the meat, or you gave somebody too much of something and not enough somewhere else to try to make up for it. That doesn't work. Rooms that are out of repair. So different things you can look at and say, we're losing revenue based on this, or a pricing based on that. So it just depends on what you're talking about. And then all these other charges that go along in it. Consumers don't care, right? They don't care about bank charges, and they don't care about license fees, and they don't care about outdoor signs and paper supplies. They care about perception of value and price. And is this something I'm willing to pay for at this price? $21.50 for a steak. Perhaps. Perhaps not. That's what you have to figure out. So different ways to price, which we'll talk about. And then other methods that we'll talk about as well. So again, it's going back and looking at what happens. So another example, and still another example. I don't sugarcoat these to not say they're important, but these are things I expect you to look at yourself and go over. So again, and make determinations based on that from a pricing standpoint. Right? So again, we set our prices, trying to get as many customers as we can. But their willingness to buy sometimes doesn't work. It's about profit margin, right? Why do we charge $1 for a soft drink or $2 for a soft drink, right? We have to make it worth our while as well. It's that juggling, that fine line that you're always balancing, right? So yes, I want the customers to perceive this as a good deal. They're getting their money's worth while at the same time making money. So you can't exist in a vacuum, and they cannot exist independently. They have to work together. Too low, people buy. Too high, they don't buy enough, right? So all those costs considered in the price. It also has to be considered fair. And it goes back to what I said in the previous chapter. $200 could be fair. $20 could be fair. $5 could be fair. What do they think is fair for what you're offering, right? And then they keep coming back if it works for them. Prices by competitors are important because people compare prices, right? Economic conditions, food trends, right? Oh, that's all the rage now. Everybody loves it. Seasonality of ingredients may affect what we put on our menus. And some operations have more flexibility than others, right? You have 20 stores. You may not have the option to just change things on a whim as opposed to a mom and pop restaurant on the beach. Make sure that we're pricing fairly. And again, how we communicate prices, it's bound by law. There's truth in advertising. And a lot of people will tell you that menus can be contracts with the customers, and they can. It's a promise to deliver a good. So, goals of the operation, labor-intensive operation charges higher prices, right? If we're going to do tableside service for salads and things like that, it's going to take more servers to serve the meal on a cruise ship. We need more people, right? And then how much it costs us to pay our bills. All these things factor into it and factor into the pricing equation. So again, the pricing strategies that we look at, again, profit-oriented. So again, how much do we turn a profit? Sales maximize revenue, not profit. In other words, I had a friend that ran a bar, and it was quantity over quality. More people, more volume. Profit margin was lower, and it was in a college town, so he did just fine. Do not feel bad for him. He's got 7 bars. And again, sales oriented. So it's looking at which one is going to be better and in relation to others in the market, what you're going to do. It's not to say one is better or worse than the other, right? Food cost percentage is simply that. And what you do is you take the ingredients that it takes to make a hamburger. So buns, burger, lettuce, tomato, onions, pickles, french fries, blah, 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 blah. And then the percentage that you want to get from that menu item. And that is separate for each thing you do because some things are cheaper than others, right? So then you look for an overall percentage that you want for your restaurant or your dining room or your hotel bar, whatever it's going to be. And again, you can use contribution method, you can use prime costing method. Again, all these methods are there. You can research those a little bit more. It's just a determination to see which one you think is the best fit for what you're trying to do. So it's not to say that prime costing is better, right? It's not to say that, contribution's better. It's to say there are some options for you out there to look at how you should price. And that's why I caution when people talk about competition, and I mentioned this before, because my competition charges $6 for a hamburger, then I go, well, I've got to charge $5.99 for my hamburger. Our costs may be different. Our utilities and our rent may be different. And they may be able to make a profit at $6 that may cost us $6.50 or $7. So you can't just go, well, I'm going to undercut them and more people are going to come. It's a good way to run out of business because you're just doing it based on, look, I'm cheaper than them and that's going to get people in. It's not covering all those big costs that I need to survive. So therefore, it's pointless to do it that way. Some of the things that we look at when we're talking about costing that go into it. So, at that table setting right there, for that cup of, which looks like it might be gazpacho or something like that, what did it cost to make that? All those factors around that table, linen on the tablecloth, how much would you pay for that soup? As opposed to, I give you a cup of coffee in that cup on the right. How much would you pay for that cup of coffee? Again, this is something where we could still make money on both of these scenarios, What is that relationship? Where is it when the customer's going to say, you know what, I go in there and that tomato soup is, $7. But oh my God, it's the best soup I've ever had. And the atmosphere is great and the service is impeccable. And it's just a really fancy place. And it, for as good as the product is, I'm willing to pay that. That's a home run for us. Now, is $7 for the soup a good cost for us to make money? Is it the right food cost percentage for us to turn a profit that we need to on that one item on our menu? And then, another thing about costing when you look at those cups on the side is, what are we using those cups for? How much are we charging for something to go in a cup like that? So things that look into it and customer perception, $20 and you get a to-go cup like that, I think it's pretty obvious to say that you're probably missing the mark with what you're trying to do. So price is all relative, and it's all, depending on what you want to do. Nothing wrong with a dollar value menu, right? And for some people, there's nothing wrong with a $100 steak. Can you make enough money to be viable with a dollar menu? Can you make enough money to be viable with a $100 steak? That's what we have to look at. And the cost. And, always think about your percentages just like you would out of $1. So if we want our food cost to be 30%, what does that mean? It means that 30 cents out of every dollar is gone to pay for food. We want our labor to be 10%. 10% of every dollar is gone to pay for labor. So right there, almost half of the money you get from $1 is gone to pay for those two expenses. So it's always something to think about and examine as you look at just beyond the fact that, we should charge this because our competitors charge this or because it seems like somebody would pay that. You got to dig deep.